Bon matin. Thank you for being here. Thanks for being here. Bon matin. On va appeler un chat un chat. La situation est grave. We're going to call a cat a cat. The situation is, as everyone knows, fairly urgent. Donald Trump's imperial madness is the greatest, most immediate threat to Canada since the War of 1812, and the biggest challenge to international peace and security and the values for which 45,000 Canadians fought and died during World War II. On va appeler, comme je disais, un chat un chat. La présidence de Donald Trump actuellement est la plus grande menace contre le Canada depuis la guerre de 1812 et le plus grand défi pour les valeurs internationales, la paix, la sécurité, toutes les choses pour lesquelles 45 000 Canadiens se sont battus et sont morts lors de la Seconde Guerre mondiale. From playgrounds to shops, from offices to fishing piers, Canadians are afraid. They fear what may come next. The 2/3 of us live within 100 kilometers of the U.S. border. Our economies are deeply integrated. And the madman is pushing his own country towards fascism. Fears abound. Des aires de jeu aux magasins, des bureaux jusqu'aux quais de pêche, il y a des millions de Canadiens de tous les âges qui redoutent l'avenir. Il y a des gens, les 2/3 d'entre nous, qui vivons près de la frontière américaine. Et il est évident que la manière dont Donald Trump agit présentement aux États-Unis en inquiète plusieurs. But as someone who spent 15 years working in conflict areas from Ukraine to Somalia, from Afghanistan to Sudan, as someone who was kicked out of 3 different dictatorships for reporting on human rights, there is one thing I want to tell all of us. Don't be scared, be prepared. Comme personne qui a passé 15 ans dans différentes zones de guerre, de l'Afghanistan à l'Ukraine, en passant par la Somalie puis le Soudan, j'en ai vu des vertes et des pas mûres. Je me suis fait expulser de 3 dictatures différentes. Puis il y a un message que j'aimerais apporter aux Canadiens maintenant et aujourd'hui. Soyons préparés. On n'a pas rien à craindre si on est préparé. As Greens, we've always believed in 2 things, transparency and the need for government to trust people, empower the citizenry to make the right choices. En tant que Verts, on a toujours cru en 2 principes fondamentaux, la transparence et la nécessité pour le gouvernement de faire confiance aux citoyens puis de leur donner l'opportunité de faire les bons choix. A lot of politicians out there, they claim that they deserve somehow to become prime minister because they would be the best, according to themselves, to face Donald Trump. Now, as someone who actually worked in conflict areas, there is one thing I can tell you. A leader is only but one person. The best way to face a threat is for a nation to be united around a common purpose. There is nothing that one single leader can do on his own to face a threat, such as the one that the United States is now posing to Canada. In times of strife, those that are best prepared always come out on top. So where Trump hides, equivocates, lies, and cheats his own citizens, we call on the Canadian government to pledge, and we pledge ourselves, to provide Canadians with the maximum transparency as to the risks we currently face, the best ways to prepare for them, the strategies that can best protect Canadian jobs, sovereignty, and our values, and the tremendous opportunities that lie ahead of us if we come out on top, and we will. Là, il y a beaucoup de politiciens aujourd'hui qui affirment, à leurs propres yeux, qu'ils méritent de devenir premier ministre parce qu'ils seraient les meilleures personnes pour faire face à Donald Trump. S'il y a une chose que je peux vous dire après avoir fait 15 ans en zone de conflit, c'est qu'au final, un chef, un leader, c'est toujours rien qu'une seule personne. Et une seule personne ne peut pas faire face à ce genre de menaces. La meilleure manière de se préparer à ce que Donald Trump est en train de nous fabriquer au sud de la frontière, c'est en étant unis avec un seul objectif, celui de défendre nos intérêts, de défendre notre pays. Et en période de lutte, ceux qui sont les mieux préparés sont toujours victorieux. Alors là où Trump se cache, puis tergiverse, puis ment à sa propre population, nous, on appelle le gouvernement canadien à être transparent, puis on promet d'être aussi transparent que possible par rapport aux risques qui sont présentement face à nous pour qu'on puisse se préparer, pour qu'on puisse trouver les stratégies, les meilleures stratégies pour y faire face, pour défendre les emplois, la souveraineté, puis les valeurs canadiennes face à Donald Trump. In that spirit of transparency, we believe it was essential to share the various risks we could identify in an attempt not to create panic, because nothing is to be feared if we can be prepared, but to spark conversations among Canadians as to the best way forward to protect our nation, especially now as Parliament, the place where those discussions should actually be taking place, is closed because of Liberal internal matters. These risks include direct and indirect interference in upcoming Canadian elections, whether they are federal or provincial. They include attempts to turn provincial leaders against one another or against the federal government. They include flooding Canadian media and flooding the entirety of the country with disinformation through Trump-controlled media outlets or sympathetic outlets to Trump. Of course, we can think of X and Meta. We can think of US-owned Canadian enterprises here in Canada, such as the Toronto Sun and the National Post, which are owned by a hedge fund in the US that has very close links to Donald Trump. We can think, of course, as well of maintaining the threat of tariff and moving the goalposts, just as the president has been doing these past couple of weeks, to maintain our country in a state of economic uncertainty. And by undermining our economy, costing Canadians tens of thousands of jobs, potentially provoking a recession, we know that eventually he could weaponize the anger at the economic circumstances caused by the tariffs to create an internal movement, an internal domestic political movement in favor of annexation. And this tactic, as we have seen not too long ago, could be similar to the Pierre Poilievre-supported Freedom Convoy, which was seeking to undermine Canadian democracy and attacking Canadian institutions and leadership with financial backing from U.S. actors. There are many other threats that we've identified. They are part of this document that we are releasing today. One thing that is clear is that facing the risks will not be easy. It will cost a lot of money. It will demand hard work and sacrifices from us all. And anyone who tells you that we can cross the rough waters ahead of us with minimum impact on our lives, or with cuts, or with a balanced budget, or by submitting to Trump simply is lying to you. Dans cet esprit de transparence, on croit que c'est nécessaire. On croit que c'est nécessaire de partager les risques auxquels on fait face actuellement, pas pour créer la panique, mais pour aider les Canadiens à se préparer, parce qu'au final, on n'a rien à craindre quand on est préparé à faire face aux défis qui nous attendent. C'est aussi pour lancer des discussions parmi les Canadiens sur la meilleure manière de répondre à la menace Trump, à un moment où l'endroit où ces discussions devraient prendre place, le Parlement à Ottawa, est fermé à cause des discussions et des questions internes propres au Parti libéral. Ces risques-là que la présidence Trump pose présentement au Canada, ben, ils incluent l'ingérence directe ou indirecte dans les élections fédérales ou provinciales. Ça inclut des tentatives de diviser les leaders provinciaux entre eux ou de les envoyer à Ottawa pour causer de la bisbille. Ça inclut évidemment le risque d'inonder le Canada avec de la désinformation, comme on le voit déjà avec les Russes et les Chinois, notamment en utilisant des alliés de Trump, que ce soit X ou Meta, malheureusement avec Zuckerberg qui, bien évidemment, travaille proche du président Trump, ou de se servir de médias canadiens qui sont contrôlés par des intérêts américains. Il y a évidemment le maintien de la menace des tarifs, puis toujours bouger la date sans trop savoir, comme le président le fait actuellement, pour maintenir notre économie dans un état d'incertitude. Et ça, avec le risque de créer, évidemment, des pertes d'emploi, une possible récession qui pourrait mener, évidemment, à un certain moment à la création interne au Canada avec soutien américain d'un mouvement pro-annexation. Un risque qui est non négligeable, quelque chose qui pourrait ressembler d'ailleurs au convoi de la liberté qui avait été supporté par Pierre Poilievre et backé par des intérêts financiers américains. Il y a plusieurs autres risques qui sont qu'on a pu identifier, qui sont présents dans ce document, Protéger le Canada, Protecting Canada. These are risks that we were able to identify. C'est certain que de faire face à ces risques-là, ça va coûter beaucoup d'argent, ça va demander des sacrifices, ça va demander beaucoup de travail de la part de tout le monde. Alors, n'importe qui va arriver et qui va vous dire qu'on peut traverser les eaux difficiles qui s'en viennent en faisant peu de sacrifices, en ayant un budget balancé ou en faisant des coupures dans le budget fédéral, est en train de vous mentir. c'est un défi monumental qui nous attend, puis c'est le temps qu'on s'y prépare. Trump is after what is most precious to us. He's after our country, our resources, our home and native land. He will not stop because we sweet talk him into it, and he will not stop because we use harsh words against his. He will stop if we manage to build the strong internal resilience to face his threats and find the allies that will help back us. And there are allies to be found. We are not alone. It's clear that this threat is not something that Mrs. Freeland or Mr. Carney or Mr. Singh or Elon Musk's favorite politician, Pierre Poilievre, when he's not courting German neo-Nazis, it's clear that these individuals cannot face this threat alone. That's something that only Canadians, all of us, if we come together, united in purpose and in alliance with our friends, with the right information about the risks coming from our government and full transparency as to what this strategy actually is, then we can face Mr. Trump. Ce qui est clair, c'est que Trump, il veut ce qui est le plus précieux pour nous, notre terre, nos ressources, notre pays. Il ne va pas s'arrêter parce qu'on lui parle gentiment ou parce qu'on est agressif avec lui. Il va s'arrêter si on bâtit la résilience interne, domestique au Canada, au sein de notre économie, et qu'on est capable de rester unis et assurément fort face à sa menace. C'est certain que ce n'est pas quelque chose que Mme Freeland, M. Carney, Mr. Singh ou le politicien préféré d'Elon Musk, Pierre Poilievre, évidemment quand il n'est pas en train de courtiser des néo-nazis allemands, c'est certain que ces individus-là, par eux-mêmes, ne seront pas capables de faire face à la menace Trump tout seul. Ça va demander à ce que tous les Canadiens s'allient entre eux, puis qu'on y fasse face avec la bonne information, puis ce serait bien d'avoir un plan de la part du gouvernement, quelque chose qu'on n'a pas vu encore. In our plan, we present 38 different measures that we believe should be taken today by the Government of Canada to help Canadians protect themselves tomorrow against all forms of U.S. encroachment on our sovereignty. But first, we need to rally our international allies. We need to have stronger diplomatic links with the EU, UK, Japan, Australia, South Korea, and others. We need to shore up our defenses at home. We need to enhance border security. We need to invest in our military capacities. We need to invest in the production and protection of strategic resources. And we also need to protect our economy, and this means supporting Canadian businesses, not US-backed businesses such as the oil and gas industry, for example, which is largely owned 70% by foreign investors. So Canadian money right now needs to benefit Canadian small and medium businesses and Canadian workers, not the richest among us. We also need to stand firm on principles. Canada must continue to endorse international law, human rights, and stand with those that are in the need of protection, those who fight with freedom and justice. That includes, of course, the people of Ukraine. It also includes holding the Trump administration accountable for its actions on the world stage. And finally, we have to ensure that Canadians are prepared for what's coming, and that means having a public awareness campaign, investing in national security infrastructure, and ensuring that citizens are informed and ready to act if necessary. Dans notre plan, on présente 38 différentes mesures qu'on estime qui peuvent être prises par le gouvernement fédéral aujourd'hui pour aider les Canadiens à faire face à la menace demain. Il faut qu'on rallie nos alliés internationaux. Il faut qu'on construise un front diplomatique économique solide avec le Royaume-Uni, l'Union européenne, l'Australie, le Japon, la Corée du Sud et plein d'autres alliés, démocraties à travers le monde qui sont aussi sous la menace de Trump. Ensuite, il est évident qu'on doit renforcer nos défenses à la maison. Il faut qu'on améliore la sécurité de nos frontières pour s'assurer que le Canada est prêt à se défendre contre toute forme d'agression. On doit aussi protéger notre économie et ce faisant, il est essentiel qu'on appuie les entreprises canadiennes, petites et moyennes, comme les travailleurs canadiens, plutôt que d'encourager la même gang de millionnaires et de milliardaires qui habituellement reçoivent les subsides fédéraux, comme on l'a vu lors de la COVID. Quatrièmement, on doit rester ferme sur nos principes. C'est essentiel que le Canada continue à appuyer ceux qui sont dans le besoin et qui se battent pour la justice et le droit international. Ça inclut de soutenir évidemment le peuple ukrainien puis de tenir Trump responsable de ses actions sur la scène internationale. Puis au final, il faut s'assurer que les Canadiens soient préparés. Ça veut dire communiquer avec les Canadiens, investir dans l'infrastructure de sécurité et garantir que les citoyens, justement, sont prêts à agir si nécessaire. we faced adversity before. We've done so from the Battle of Vimy Ridge to the halls of the United Nations. Time and time again, we have defended our land and what is right, and we will do so again. We have faced fascism before. We defeated it then, and we will defeat it again. On a déjà affronté l'adversité dans le passé, que ce soit à la bataille de la crête de Vimy, aux salles des Nations Unies. Les Canadiens ont prouvé over and over qu'on défend et qu'on va défendre ce qui est juste, ce qui est moral, ce qui est bon pour le Canada et ce qui nous appartient. On va continuer à le faire. On a vaincu le fascisme par le passé et on va le faire encore si nécessaire. Merci. Thank you. Questions?
Earlier on, you spoke about your experience in conflict zones, but a lot of the measures that you have brought up are not so much a physical manifestation. But do you, in your view, does Canada face a threat of a physical nature from the United States?
Yes. Yeah, it is. I think Canadians need to be prepared for all possible courses of action when it comes to our relationship with the United States. The President Trump has made it very clear that he wants to annex Canada. And right now he's using economic force to do so. We'll see how long that lasts. Of course, we need to do everything we can in the meantime to create the deterrence needed to have him back off. And part of the way to do that is to create the strong alliances with our European partners, Australia, New Zealand, the UK, Scandinavia, and others to create some sort of an economic NATO of sorts. If you touch us with tariffs, all of us will touch you with tariffs. And that is something that that's the kind of leadership that I wish I could see from the Liberal government right now, but we're not quite there yet. The first stop for Mr. Trudeau when Trump began to discuss the possibility of tariffs back in December was not to go to Mexico, it was to go to Mar-a-Lago. And I think that was a significant mistake. We need to bank on our allies. We have allies in South America, in Europe, in Asia, and the Pacific, and we're all facing the same threat. And it is only natural for Canada to take a leadership role in creating the sort of infrastructure economically that can help us deter the U.S. from continuing on its course. But if we cannot do that, then I do believe Canadians and Canada in general need to be prepared for what undoubtedly right now is an extremely uncertain world, one where we have two large actors, if not three, the largest countries on earth, the US, Russia, China, that are revisionist in nature, that do not play by the rules, that are bullying smaller nations, and it is only normal in that context that we prepare ourselves for every possible course of action from Washington.
Earlier, you were listing out the reasons why Mr. Trump would want to annex Canada. You talked about he's after our countries, after our resources. A couple weeks ago, the Prime Minister on the microphone had mentioned critical minerals specifically as a target of Mr. Trump. Canada has a joint action plan with the United States that signed under the Biden administration in 2020 on critical minerals. What should Canada do with that agreement?
I think Canada would be well advised right now to revise every single agreements it has with the U.S. One of them, by the way, is the F-35 agreement. We have $80 billion of Canadian taxpayers' money that will go to Lockheed Martin, a U.S. business. And having spent quite a bit of time in Scandinavia recently, I do know that the Danes who acquired the F-35 as well were worried about their ability to fly those planes to defend Greenland should the U.S. move forward with its threat to militarily annex what is Danish territory. And so I do think, the U.S. is not playing by any set of rules right now. I think the priority for us as Canadians and the priority for our government should be to protect Canadian interests first. And if that means that we need to withdraw from certain agreements in a context where the U.S. actively right now as well is not sharing information with us. They have taken an extremely offensive and aggressive posture towards Canada. They've forbidden some of their scientists from sharing critical information that could be life-saving for Canadians when it comes to extreme weather events, for example, or pollution in our waters. They forbade their own scientists from sharing that information with Canada. And in that context, I believe Canadians need to look after Canada first right now, and certainly ensure that every single public dollar is spent or invested in Canadian businesses or in supporting or strengthening the Canadian economy for Canadians, not U.S. Interests or U.S.-backed businesses that operate here.
Before having the press conference today, did you send that 38-point plan to the government, and have you received a response on it?
We have not sent it yet, no.
There's questions on that. I'll just ask one more. Obviously, I'm sure you caught the debates of the last 2 nights. I just want to get your impressions on what you heard both in the French and the English debate.
Again, I think you know, when it comes to the future, we need a united Canada as much as possible. So, as I said, I don't think Mrs. Freeland or Mr. Carney or Mrs. Gould or Mr. Bayliss on their own, nor Mr. Poilievre on his own, will be able to take us through the waters ahead. I think this moment in Canadian history really calls on all of us in politics and Canadians to prioritize the interests of the country in the face of what is, and the Germans are recognizing it, the Europeans are clear about it, what is the gravest challenge in history, in recent history, to Canada and Europe. And I think that seriously calls into question the sort of the premise that some of the leadership candidates in the Liberal Party have, that they would be the best equipped and that they can you know, do this on their own. This will require true cross-party effort, and it is critical that Canadians be equipped and be trusted as well to take the right actions. And it's the most incredible thing for me, and I think for many Canadians, to see how this grassroots movement of, you know, Buy Canadian, Buy Canada started. That is extremely impressive, and frankly, that is the kind of spirit that needs to be maintained. And I worry, of course, especially given the tone of politics these days, that the upcoming elections, especially with the kind of aggressive narratives that the Conservatives are bringing forth, I worry that there will be more division, and we need to do everything we can to avoid that and really come together as a nation, and that's certainly how we're going to approach the next election. Yeah.
Just absolute last one, but if an election is called in short order following the Liberal leadership contest, do the Green Party, do you have candidates lined up in every riding ready to go?
We have 130 some candidates right now, and a few more that are undergoing vetting at the moment. And of course, we're hoping to have a full slate as much as possible. But we're going to be present throughout the country. That's for sure. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks.
Recording stopped.